Well, Razorback fans, we are still here at SEC Media Days. Texas being a part of the conference is actually a pretty fun thing for Razorback fans. Why? Let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors, as we are live from SEC Media Days here at Radio Rogue and getting ready to conclude the entire thing, even though we still have the Arkansas day to go, which is going to be happening today, actually. Yes, it is. Yeah, it's been a blur today, but either way, it's going to be a lot of fun and talking about all things Arkansas, but we'll do that as tomorrow's podcast will be coming out. But remember that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sport stops sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Hope everyone's having a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Thursday. As, again, we're live at SEC Media Day. Sam Pittman's going to be speaking with the media today, as well as Landon Jackson, Andrew Armstrong, and Taylon Green. So looking forward to that. But there's been a few teams that have gone already today, and there hasn't been really anything controversial. And to be honest, that's kind of one of the funny things that I have always felt like with SEC Media Days. It misses its punch. It misses its controversy. Like, y'all remember when Johnny Manziel was here and the circus that it was? Or when Tim Tebow was asked if he was saving himself for marriage? Or when coaches had some controversial things happen and they snapped at the media or whatever. It just feels like that's gone a little bit. It's become more of an SEC network event than it has an SEC media event, if I'm just being honest. So that's the case. Either way, still some interesting facts have been going on and interesting that's been happening with a few teams. And today I want to talk about Texas. We'll talk a little bit about Missouri, Mississippi State because they've also gone, but let's spend time on Texas. I am not naive enough to think that Texas and them joining the conference is going to have a major impact. We all know. Remember just years ago when it was officially announced, or at least being officially reported, that Texas and Oklahoma are joining the conference, there was a lot of mixed reactions to it. My initial reaction was kind of like, ooh, how about that? But as time went on, honestly, I loved it. I didn't love it when Missouri and A&M joined, but I kind of love it that Oklahoma and Texas have joined. Specifically Texas because of the historical nature between Arkansas and the Longhorns. Dating back to the Southwest Conference days, and people always have game of the century that they talk about. Texas, Arkansas back in 1969 may have been the biggest game of the century that there possibly ever could have been. And overall, it's just been great to see some of the matchups and some of the moments and some of the rivalries. And now you're going to have it again. You're going to have Arkansas and Texas once again. I think Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC, has made it very apparent that that is a rivalry that he respects, and they're going to have it in every single sport. I was shocked Arkansas and Texas do not play each other in every sport every single year. I love that. It's a respect thing, and it needs to happen that way. But to see how the SEC has reacted when Texas has been joining, some people have gotten already tired of their ego and of their just thinking that they just own everything, that the biggest game in town, the biggest here at SEC Media Days, I'd make an argument for, is you don't have Nick Saban. Well, you have him here, but he's not on Alabama. And the fact that he's in the state of Texas, and Texas is coming off a college football playoff appearance, a lot of big, but forget all that. Forget about the Arkansas angle and all that stuff. Or let me forget about the SEC angle. Think about the Arkansas angle, all right? So Arkansas does not have a rivalry in football, at least to the extent of what common rivalries are. And being able to have Texas in it, some people have brought up, well, isn't that going to take away recruiting state of Texas from Arkansas? Is Texas going to make it tougher for them to recruit in Texas? Because, you know, now that you already had one Texas team in the SEC. Now you got two Texas teams in the SEC. Isn't that going to make it a lot more difficult for Arkansas to succeed? And my argument to that, folks, is no. No, it's not. Texas is a good program with a lot of money. Big brand. They're everywhere. Burnt orange is pretty disgusting. I agree. They're annoying. I agree. But there's a lot to them. And for Arkansas, To be able to have a matchup like that they can always look forward to, that you can always look forward to each and every year, I'm all for it. I'm game. I want to have that. Because here's my thing, the bigger games that you can be a part of, the bigger matchups, the one that people are going to be paying attention to and looking at, and where a good time on a good channel and gets promoted the way it should, that's always a positive thing. No one is ever going to say that Arkansas and Texas is the greatest rivalry in the SEC. Texas and Texas A&M is always going to be a bigger rivalry. Texas and Oklahoma, for sure, is always going to be a bigger rivalry. But there's always going to be something to Texas and Arkansas. And it'll be felt. It's one thing to be told it. Hey, this is a big deal. You know, some of the fake rivalries that they try to make up for Arkansas, hey, no, this is a big deal. But it's not. What's a deal is you feel it. You feel it. And in 2021, when Arkansas and Texas played each other in football, did you feel it? I know you did. I know you did. And everybody else did too. I'll never forget the call that Joe Tessitore, he was on the call for that game, said at the very end when Arkansas fans were rushing the field. He's like, now a lot of you are asking, why would you rush the field against the number 15th ranked team? You want to know why? Because rivalries matter in college football. And this one runs deep, real deep. And it goes on, and it hits you where if you were watching that game and you had no dog in the fight, you didn't care about Arkansas, you didn't care about Texas, you didn't care about either opponent who was winning or who wasn't winning. If you didn't care about any of that stuff, but you watched it and saw the Arkansas fans and how much they had, and then all the horns down that was going on, and then you felt what Tessitore had to say at the end of the game and how it resonated with you, you're like, there's something different to this. And it was all anyone could talk about. It was the game that I still get brought up to me when here at SEC Media Days that people talk about. Like, hey, I remember that game. That game was awesome. Like, I remember getting text messages from people in the media around the SEC saying, man, dude, how crazy is it there in Fayetteville right now for that game? It just feels different. And when you have games that feel different and games that people want to hear and want to see and want to remember, and they have no dog in the fight of who's playing or whatnot, but when you have those games, it just builds and it becomes something more. Arkansas doesn't have a game year in and year out that it's just like, oh, this is different. This is different. Like, think about it. When was the last time Arkansas had a conference game that had some consistency on it feeling different? Like, you could maybe argue back in the day when Arkansas and LSU played each other at the end of the year, maybe that was as close as it could have gotten. You know, maybe when Arkansas and Tennessee played each other fairly consistently back in the late 90s, early 2000s, maybe. But not really anything close. This is going to give you, Razorback fans, an opportunity to finally get that type of respect in a football game, to get that type of respect from a football program where it's given to you not because you don't want it, not because it's by default, you're the only ones left. This has been given to you by the SEC with Texas joining saying, hey, Arkansas, we know it's different. We know this is a different animal when you play Texas. Here you go. Play this game. Play the game all the time. And let's get crazy with it. We'll get you on good TV channels. We'll get you the primetime games. We'll do it for you because we know it's different. You got the SEC in it. You got the ESPN folks in it. You got the fans that are in it. It's something special. Like, I'm going on a Texas radio station tomorrow. Covers the covers the Longhorns, I should say. Covers the Longhorns, and they're hyped. Like, they even mentioned they're excited to play Arkansas. Like, listen, they play Texas and Oklahoma every year. They've been doing that. It's always going to be bigger. It's always going to be different, but they're used to it. And Texas, and it's almost like Texas was trolling A&M for so long. He's like, we don't care to play you. We don't have to play you. But they even brought up to me, these are Aggie, or I keep saying Aggie, Longhorn radio people. People that covers Texas. Like, they went up like, dude, we're excited about this. We're excited about it, about the history, about the tradition. And one guy even brought up when Nolan Rich walked off the court, he remembers he was at that game. Like, it's going to be so different. So don't let anyone tell you, oh, when Texas joins, it's going to hurt Arkansas. Are you kidding me? It's not going to hurt Arkansas. It's going to help Arkansas. And not because you needed Texas's help. It's not, and don't get it twisted. It's not because, oh, you need Texas to help you out. It's not that. You just needed a game. You needed a game to help you out. You needed to have a must-see, much-watch game, broadcast, event that you can count on every single year. You needed that. Arkansas fans have been waiting on that. This is your chance. This is your time. This is what's going to make it fun. So embrace Texas being in. Be happy that Texas is in the conference. But even when they are, just make sure, hey, Norman Rich said, one more time, Horns. Love it. Embrace it and have fun with it. It's going to be great to see Arkansas and Texas play each other in every single sport. So welcome to the SEC, Texas. Get ready for the insanity. All right, we are brought to you here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast by FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much that, of course, never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like we always want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets at any time I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everybody, every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. It's FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. We talked about Texas. They already win the SEC Media Days. Sarkisian, they're getting a lot of love. But there are two particular teams that have already gone to here over the past couple of days that are on Arkansas' schedule. And they're interesting games in the way of, not saying they get overlooked, but they're kind of important. Because let's be honest, Arkansas this season, not expected to do a whole lot. In fact, I would bet a lot of money that Arkansas will be picked to finish 14th or worse out of 16 teams. So if you are going to really improve, if you're going to be a team that's going to shock some people, if you're a team that is going to be better than what people are expecting you to be, you got to do a couple of things. Okay? One, you got to be competent in the coaching side of things. Two, you got to have a competent SEC roster at least. And three, you got to be able to beat the teams that you're better than or that you should win. Now, before all the Missouri fans get their panties in a wad, I'm not talking about them being a better team than Missouri this year. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying when you go into certain games and you feel like you, talent-wise, may match you up a little bit, or at least program-wise, coaching-wise, whatever it may match up fairly well, you need to find where you can get your edge. And Arkansas playing Mississippi State and Missouri this year on the road, both games on the road, are going to be crucial because I look at Arkansas' schedule and have felt like 7-5 is a doable thing. That Oklahoma State game in week 2 is going to be the biggest one for me. 7-5 is doable. If you win that Oklahoma State game, you start 3-0 essentially, and then you go on the road to Auburn, and then you have Texas A&M in Arlington. You have Tennessee at home in Fayetteville before you hit the bye week. Those are your first 6 games. That's your halfway point of the season. If you get to 3-0, and then in those next 3 games against Auburn on the road, A&M in Arlington, and then Tennessee and Fayetteville, I think you can win one of those games. I do. I think you can win one of those games. I think your best chance might be Texas A&M. However, you've had a lot of success on the road against Auburn. In fact, you beat them in 22. You beat them in 20. You know the record runs you did. 18 whatever, 16 whatever, 14 whatever. We don't worry about that. Hey, 2012, 2010, 2008, 2002, 2000, 98. You all won at Auburn, so you can win one of those games. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's them. Maybe you finally ended on a good note. Maybe that's the case. But you can be 4-2. I think 4-2 is, and when you get to that point, you're okay. So you just got to go 3-3 the rest of the way. Well, let's be honest. Beating LSU ain't going to be easy at home. Beating Ole Miss, beating Texas, those 3 teams, it ain't going to be easy. Those are going to be teams that are better than you, sure, and it ain't going to be easy. But you have the non-conference opponent that you should win. Then you have Mississippi State and Missouri. You can split one of those games. And I think Arkansas will. It could be Mississippi just as easily. It could be a team like Missouri. It depends on what the teams are doing at that point in time. But I think if you're going to get to that point of 7-5, you have to get one of those, 100%. So if you start at 4-2, do Mississippi State, Missouri, you add the non-conference game, that's 5 wins right there, 6 wins right there, so you're 6-6. That gives you the likelihood, or at least a good probability, of all those other SEC home games of winning one of those. Because I'm not going to sit here and say, like, oh, well, this is why they win this game, this is why they win. It's a roll of the dice. It's tough, but, I mean, be honest. Would you be shocked if I told you that Arkansas beats Ole Miss this season? Arkansas's really done well against Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, especially at home. Wouldn't you be shocked? Wouldn't you be shocked Arkansas beat LSU this year? I mean, shoot, you've done as good of a job against them as anybody. And you've only lost by 3 points in the times that you have. It's like, that game's weird. We know it's weird. Who's to say that you don't win that game? I mean, I would be surprised at Texas. I'll be honest. I don't think Texas is as good as what people are trying to hype them up to be, but I still think they're pretty dadgum good. So, I'm saying all that to say this. You got to find a way to split, at the minimum, split Mississippi State, Missouri. You didn't beat Mississippi State last year in what was by far the worst football game I've ever witnessed, these 2 eyeballs in regulation. And we know you didn't beat Missouri. Both those games were in Fayetteville. You didn't win. But imagine how great it's almost like, if you beat Missouri, you'd probably feel better because you finally got that monkey off your back. But at the same time, though, not beating Mississippi State, which might be picked to finish one of the last teams in the SEC, is going to be a real frustrating thing to deal with. I don't know. I feel like if you had to pick one, it'd probably be Missouri just because you're tired of losing to them. And it'd be nice to finally, not have Eli Drinkwitz, trying to do whatever it is he does and trolling and all that. I don't know. He's kind of an interesting kid. Jeff Levy's a good coach, though. I think Jeff Levy could do some good things over there at Mississippi State. I really do. With those, so man, that's tough. See, 7-5 is doable. Shoot. You better get to 7-5, or heads are going to roll. 7-5, maybe. I mean, if you're 6-6, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it depends on how that 6-6. Like, who'd you beat? If you just beat your 4 non-conference teams and then beat Mississippi State and like, I don't know, like Auburn. Okay. I mean, it wouldn't really get you going. It's not gonna just gonna blow your mind and get everybody pumped up and excited. So, only one way to find out, though. It's gonna be a big one. Can't wait for the football season to get started. And we'll talk a little basketball, though, here on the other side of the break. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. A little basketball news and a little cool thing that I got tagged in by Joe Tipton, who, of course, does all the, he's got the biggest insider there is when it comes to all things basketball, college basketball, recruiting, everything. And this was pretty cool. So you guys remember, this was about a month ago, maybe less than a month ago. Darius Acuff. He is the 5-star, #1 ranked guard in the 2025 class, like bona fide dude. All right. He, back in June, I guess, eliminated some schools and came down to his final 4 schools: UConn, Kansas, Michigan, and Arkansas. That was back in June. Well, Joe Tipton just tweeted this out yesterday. Despite including UConn in his list of finalists, 5-star Darius Acuff says he likely won't be considering the back-to-back champs on commitment day. The #1 ranked point guard in 2025 has Arkansas, Kansas, and Michigan as he inches towards a decision. The Cal factor, man. The Cal factor. Now, that doesn't mean he's for sure coming to Arkansas at all. Because, let's be honest, if you're talking about NIL and whatnot, I know Kansas does a good job with it. And you know Michigan's going to be going on it, especially with the new coach. So, it's going to be pretty strong, pretty potent. But it's just great to be in that conversation. And maybe I'm looking at it in an arrogant way. Maybe I'm looking at it in the way I shouldn't be. But, dude, I look at it as feeling pretty good as far as the chances go for Arkansas getting Darius Acuff. In fact, I would even be shocked if Arkansas didn't get it. Not of any sort of thing that I have like inside knowledge, but just because it's kind of how these things go. It's kind of how it works out for them. And if you look at 24/7 Sports, he's the number 4 player in the country, number 1 point guard, and the number 2 player in the state of Florida. It's from IMG Academy, so he played some good stuff. 6'3", 180 pounds. For sure, like a one-and-done type player. But isn't it nice just to be in the mix for those and like feeling good about the possibilities? Isn't it nice to have a coach in Cal where you're just like, I don't know what is going to happen on the floor each and every year. I don't know what's going to be happening day to day, year to year, player to player, who's going to be on the team and who's like, there's a lot of uncertainty. But just knowing that each and every year, as long as Cal Perry's your coach, you're going to have and be in the mix, the top players, top talent every season. And not only that, but it's not one of those deals to where it's like, well, you mix for 4 of them, but you only get one sometimes. No, it's not even like that. It's like, no, you are in the mix for 4 of them. You're always going to get at least 2. Like I have no doubt and zero issue in coming out and saying that I think Cal, as long as he's the coach at Arkansas, he's going to get at least 2 5-stars every year. At least 2. I also talked about how in high school he really wants to get like 3 players and then hit the portal for the other ones. And that's it. That's what he did this past year. So, like, I'm all for that. So he's going to go all in on a couple of players, a few players, a handful of players. So imagine, you already got 3 5-stars coming in last year. Imagine this next year he gets like the number 1, number 2, number 4 player or whatever it is in the country coming in. Again, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be shocked. But it's just good to see the work keep happening, and more schools get eliminated that's not named Arkansas is always better for the Razorbacks anyways. Appreciate everybody listening in to Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. See you then.